Sean, go
Hi,
ahead.
Mr. Secretary. So it was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect, crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
I will take this since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Is Jeff Bezos still a Trump supporter?
Look, I will not speak to the president's relationships with Jeff Bezos, but I will tell you that this is certainly a hostile and political action by Amazon.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding here. It is a hostile and political act by Amazon to note that the tariffs, which are real, and making those items more expensive actually exist. I guess instead we're all just supposed to play make-believe and pretend that the tariffs that are making everything more expensive are just not. How's that for a plan? Of course, what the Trump administration is afraid of is the US recognizing what we've been saying all along, that tariffs are not a tax on foreign countries, they are a tax on American consumers. If you've watched my videos, you've heard me say this no fewer than 1,000 times. Tariffs are not paid by foreign countries. Donald Trump can say until he's blue in the face that he's imposing tariffs on China and China's gonna pay us, but that's not how it works. We can't tax a foreign country. China doesn't pay our IRS. We impose tariffs on Chinese imports, which are paid by the importing company. The company is not going to eat those higher costs. They pass it on to the consumer. That means we all pay more. Donald Trump's tariffs are a tax on Americans, period. And acknowledging that objective reality pierces the alternate reality that Donald Trump is trying to convince his supporters of, that he's hatched some brilliant plan to make foreign countries pay, and in turn, we get rich. And let's be clear, this is a recurring theme with Donald Trump. His entire political career is predicated on this absurd idea that he's got the power to make other countries pay for things that ultimately he just makes Americans pay for. Remember the wall? His big, beautiful wall that Mexico is definitely, totally gonna pay for? The one that's gonna span the entirety of the southern border? Yeah, well, it was not so much the entire southern border as it was 52 miles, but those 52 miles weren't paid for by Mexico, they were paid for by American taxpayers. Trump manipulated his supporters into thinking that he was getting a foreign country to pay for his agenda, and instead, they paid for it. And he's doing the exact same thing now, wherein he launches a trade war and pretends that he's taking it to these foreign countries. He's not. He is just taxing American citizens and playing make-believe that he's winning. In fact, you know what this reminds me of? Remember when Donald Trump didn't want to test for COVID because he felt that if you don't test, then the cases don't exist?
As I said this morning, that's probably the downside of having good testing, is you find a lot of cases that other countries who don't even test don't have. If you don't test, you don't have any cases. If we stop testing right now, we'd have very few cases, if any. But we do. We're at a level that Mike is going to talk about that's so high, but we will show more cases when other countries have far more cases than we do. They just don't talk about it.
That's the strategy now. If you don't tell people they're paying more for tariffs, somehow that manifests itself into reality. Trump's whole strategy is based on object permanence. If you don't acknowledge the tariffs, somehow they don't exist. This guy has the same strategy as a 2-year-old playing peekaboo. And of course, now we've got a new line of attack being debuted by Republicans.
Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. In fact, here's Josh Hawley reiterating that attack, writing, Amazon finally admits most of its products come from China. Yeah, dude, I think most people in the United States know that most of our products come from China. I don't think people go on Amazon.com because their priority is patriotism. I think we go to Amazon because it is cheap and convenient. And I bet if Josh Hawley wasn't so busy grandstanding and virtue signaling, something tells me that he's buying plenty of stuff on Amazon too. That he's got plenty of made in China things in his own house. I mean, my God, if these people actually gave a shit about their new battle cry of Buy American, they probably wouldn't idolize this guy.
I have nothing against China. I just hate that their leaders are so much smarter than our leaders. 2016, we will not be the world leader anymore. We have been always.
What will
but
happen
in 2016, China becomes the great economic leader.
Even if Mitt Romney is elected, he says that
maybe you can turn it around.
Well, do you think he could turn it around?
I think we can.
Do you think Mitt Romney can turn it around?
I think he can.
As a line of clothing. Now, where were these made?
These were made, I don't know where they were made, but they were made someplace. But they're great. It's ties, shirts, cufflinks, everything sold at Macy's, and they're doing great. #1 selling tie anywhere in the world.
#1 selling
I don't know.
tie
Normally
anywhere
I
in the
wouldn't
world.
wear
What,
that shirt,
you wouldn't wear that
we
shirt?
We also have them in white and beautiful white.
Where are the shirts made? Bangladesh.
Well, it's good.
Okay.
We employ people in Bangladesh.
Ties? Where are the ties
They
made?
have to work
These are
too.
beautiful ties.
They are great ties.
The ties are made in where? China? Ties are made in China.
So miss me with this faux outrage over stuff being made in China. The US's manufacturing capacity has been declining every decade since the 1940s, nearly a century ago. We lost manufacturing every single decade since after World War II. Our labor laws and wages make it impossible, literally impossible, for us to compete in that sector. And that's not me complaining about our labor laws and our wages. I support strong labor laws and high wages, but China doesn't have them, and we don't get to dictate Chinese law. And given that reality we find ourselves in, we will lose business to China in the manufacturing sector. So the notion that Trump thinks we're suddenly going to manufacture everything in the US and that Americans are actually going to pay the prices that American manufacturing requires betrays a fundamental and dangerous misunderstanding of consumer behavior and our economy. Consider too, China can wait us out. Trump may pretend that China is falling over itself to sprint to the negotiating table, but they're not, because they aren't subject to the same political pressures that American politicians are. They don't have midterms coming up next year. Xi is president for life. He's not going anywhere. And China is a communist country that can suppress critical media coverage and punish dissent. The US, at least for now, unfortunately, as far as Trump is concerned, can't do that, meaning political gravity still exists. China can afford to hold out. Hell, they can hold out for a decade if they need to. The United States, well, judging by Trump's very quickly tanking approval ratings, not so much. So Trump can talk tough and attack Amazon for acknowledging objective reality, but we all know what the resolution here is going to be. Trump will cave, like we all know he's going to do, and we'll go back to pre-tariff rates, with the only difference being that the rest of the world will be much less reliant on the US, because they've now recognized that we are an unreliable trade partner. For example, countries will import fewer goods from American farmers by going to places like Brazil for soybeans and Australia for beef. Why? Because those countries have stable leadership and ours does not. So even if the rates go back to normal tomorrow, our country is already going to be worse off. The damage has already been done. Trump has already screwed us, and we sadly are not going to recover. Meaning Donald Trump's ego trip has a cost, and that cost is going to be paid for by hardworking Americans whose businesses will suffer and whose livelihoods will disappear. All to assuage the fragile ego of a thin-skinned idiot who decided to plunge us headfirst into a recession that could have and should have been avoided. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.